Well, hello everybody, this is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to the Rattlecast. We're the biggest freewheeling live stream poetry podcast on the planet, in your ears and on your laptops. Our guest for episode number 332 is Jason B. Crawford. They'll be here in just a few minutes, but before we get in, I should say that Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication since 1995 and are unaffiliated with any other organization. We just do all this because we love poetry. I need you to too, so please do click on that like button and share. Make sure you're subscribed. Ring the bell for notifications. Whatever you can do to help spread poetry around the world would be much appreciated. So we're going to start out like we always do with our Poets Respond poet, and a very familiar face, a two-time guest in the Rattlecast, is here with, sadly, another follow-up to some poems she's been publishing regularly in Poets Respond. Julia Kolchinsky is here. Hey, Julia, how you doing?
Hey, glad to be here always. Sometimes not glad for the occasion, but always glad to be here with you.
Yeah, definitely. And so, we had a poem, Meyer in Ukraine, way back at the beginning, and now it's 4 years later with this Villanelle. And I assume it's something that you wanted and knew you were going to be writing ahead of time, right?
Well, every year I feel like on the anniversary, I turn to form as a way to, not let myself be immersed in the actual violence, but kind of let the form be a way of processing and channeling and containing the uncontainable. And so, I wrote one year later, and then I wrote a Pantoum 2 years later, and a Tritina 3 years later. And I really thought 4 years later, let's not have a poem. But then we're still at war. And so I just had to return to that ghostly villanelle and let those refrains echo and actually just challenge myself again because the information and the news and the violence is so challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I challenged myself, what else can I rhyme with war? And so that was kind of my challenge.
Yeah, well, let's hear it, Julia. Go ahead and read
it. 4 years later. It's difficult to remember the war, when ice thaws to reveal the earth's still there. Everything returns as it was before, the missiles and shells and birch branches torn. My mother calls to warn of more snow, swears it's difficult to remember the war or winter, when in windows robins roar and cherry blossoms bud spring, declare everything returns as it was before. Even the poets have forgotten, or perhaps chosen to turn towards their self-care. It's difficult to remember the war, when so many other violences roar, body counts and years, the sweet, sickening air. Everything returns as it was before. Forgive us the ease of amnesia. Forgive our longing for bloom and repair. It's difficult to remember the war. Everything returns as it was before.
Yeah, that's another powerful poem, and especially, with another war blooming up too. Hopefully we won't have you back for 5 years later, Julia, but another powerful poem. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was Julia Kolchinsky with 4 years later from our Poets Response series. If you have any poems about current events, anything that's happening right now in the last week, submit them by Friday night at midnight. We publish a poem about whatever's going on Sunday morning, and then have the poet on the Rattlecast too. So do that. You find that under content up at rattle.com. You'll find the submission portal. Just get your poems in by Friday night. All right, now we're going to take a quick break and go to our main guest, Jason B. Crawford. So sit tight, and we'll be right back with a whole lot more poetry. And we're back. Thanks for your patience. Like I said, today's guest is Jason B. Crawford. Jason was born in Washington, D.C. and raised in Lansing, Michigan. Is the author of Year of the Unicorn Kidz. Their second collection, YEET, is the winner of the Omnidawn First Second Book Prize and was published in the fall of 2025. They've been published in Poetry Magazine, Academy of American Poets, Cincinnati Review, Beloit Journal, a whole bunch of other places. They're an emerging writers fellow for Lambda Literary and hold their MFA in poetry at the New School. And here they are, Jason B. Crawford. Hey, Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Yeah, definitely my pleasure. It's a fascinating book that you have. You sent YEET, and I love the title and the cover, first of all, which is the first thing you see with the book. And then the book is fascinating and imaginative. Do you want to start out? I think maybe setting the stage for this book would be something, a good way to start, since it is so themed and creative.
Of course. I'm going to read the first poem that I wrote for the book. So it's not the first poem in the book, but it is the first poem that was written for this collection. And I always have to caveat with saying I will not be doing what the title says in this poem. I promise. If I ever leave New York, I'm going to burn everything I own. This is where the stork left me, at the foot of a planet learning to murder itself. Before I traced along Michigan's long blue veins, found a clean passageway home. I was built in a forest of boys slap boxing the summer's sweat. Now a coliseum of staggering buildings stretch inwards towards me, their fingers mushroomed and unwanting, their awkward gaze sticking to me like too ripe fruit. They must teach me about my skin and its dysfunction, the walls I refuse to blend into. What happens when I can be seen? I am a child, born in a country that hates me more than I can hate myself. I'm trying to understand the color, green, all the life that it could hold, but I cannot shake this feeling of what I owe.
And that was the first poem written, I guess, from the book YEET by Jason B. Crawford. If I ever leave New York, I'm going to burn everything I own. So that book, the concept, I guess, of leaving is the poem you wrote. And I'm really curious about the journey because it becomes such an imaginative, science fiction-ish, joyous and creative way to go with this topic. So how did you come up with the overarching conceit of the book?
In two ways. Partly it was I wanted to do something completely different from my first collection, and I was in my MFA, so I wrote this entire book within my MFA, and I really wanted to do something that felt different, but I also wanted to do something very grounded in, just in blackness, because I felt like I really left a lot of blackness out of my first book, and I wanted to feel more connected to my people. The second part is I was reading Eve L. Ewing's collection, Electric Arches, and the first poem in that book is so imaginative in this conceit of these people called moon people coming down to earth and wrecking everything and freeing black people from what is America, and it being like this mystery in the night of how it happened. And I wanted to flip it on its head, and I said, what if instead of people coming down and saving black people, what if all the black people on earth just decided, they got up one day and said, let's find a way to get off this planet and find a place where we are just people? What does that look like? And it started to become a history lesson from there of what it looked like after. So that's how we got there.
Yeah, well, it's just a fascinating structure to the book. Do you want to do the next poem that you had to share, which is, it shows how you play too with the size and space on the page, negative space and faded text too. So do you want to read that?
Yeah. This is when we finally get there after George Abram. 1. Should we start by crafting a map? I must be honest, I do not know where in the galaxy there is. I do not know the lineage for this soil, no clear placement of meteors to name where we have been or where we might or we have yet made it safe. Traversing the long Atlantic of the stars is tiring when done correctly. I know there are planets unnamed by bad hands, ones too far to spit at our Nike Crescent smiles. I know my beloveds are willing to travel space in search for them. Not sure the planet, the shape of the rock that we will call home, but I know it will be magnificent and rich, brimming with dirt. Finally, we can count all that is ours too. What part of inventory will be colonized? What parts of this land can we say we own? What we found, what we remember most during travel must have been the rotting cherries devoted to the most beautiful trees, the hydrangea light licking at the stems, hugging each root, the raspberries climbing the trunks of our legs in preparation for their own exploration. What we found here was beauty in the form of everything been free. Nothing was ever theirs. 3. We will not call any of our findings ours, just brother, sister, mother, friends, bush of knowing I refuse to steal from, a stone, swallowing a stone, swallowing a stone, endless, forever, planet-sized gobstopper floating in between nowhere, and we are too far gone. Here, everything could be different if we stopped believing in gravity. If the ashes of all borders were tucked beneath the carpet, if we forgot the language of taking, if they hadn't the ability to travel here first.
Yeah, so that was um, when we finally get there. Another poem from the book YEET by Jason B. Crawford. And for those just listening to the audio, it's sort of 3 prose poems, sort of short prose poems that both fade out as they go, but also rise up across the page, so that they kind of, it's almost like they are blasting off into another dimension, I guess is the effect. And it is really a fascinating effect that you use very often in this book. There are a lot of play with the text going on here. And of course, with the themes having to do with blackness and whiteness and interplay with that, it really makes a lot of sense what you're doing and stretching, breaking through margins and boundaries is another thing. And it's really unusual to see a book of poems be so much the structure and shape of the poems on the page are a part of the meaning. Like sometimes you see some concrete poems and they make sense, but then a whole book that works that way is unusual. So I'm curious how you developed that style and how you started playing with just the actual presentation of a poem on the page.
One of the biggest things when I was writing the book was I wanted to interrogate how much black text could take up white space, and also think about what that negative white space is actually doing on the page. So one of the things that is often noticed is, especially if you have the book in hand, is that when you open the book, you actually read it from its side. So you're going to read it from its side instead of reading it like a normal book when you're reading from the spine, right? It was the biggest thing on that is because I wanted the book to feel unnatural in your hand. I wanted to feel like it's taking up space. And yeah, when I was working on like form or thinking about how much overlay on text, everything was about how much smudging or how much extra blackness could I put on a singular page. And it, I mean, one thing, this the when we finally get there was so much work. to put together to get the columns right, to make sure the spaces felt proper, things like that. It was it was a lot of like thought process and work for it to be what I consider to be the finished poem. But I think when you see the form and you see it move away from it, or you see like a break in it, it makes sense to why that's there. And that was my overall purpose of writing it that way.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's really cool. And two, the title. I love the title Yeet, and I'm at that age where I know slang terms only because I have kids, and
Mhm.
I'm sensing, I can tell that that's like where I understand things, and so that's they use Yeet all the time. I don't know if I would. We have a lot of older viewers that probably their kids are grown up and maybe don't pass the slang along. So Yeet means to like sort of. It's interesting because it's like to throw something, but like with the kind of I don't know, like a sense of I don't know, like joy and indifference too, maybe. Like there's kind of like a casualness. There's a happiness to it, but there's also like this like I don't know. So how did that come? Because it's a fascinating way that I think that emotion fits the book really well too. So it's a really well selected title. So I think describe maybe how you came to that as the title and why it fits for people who might not know what yeet means.
So it's really funny how we got here. When I started my MFA and I started writing these poems, I've almost always every single chapbook, like the first collection, every time I got into writing the book, I knew what it was called. Like immediately. It's the first thing I started with was the title of the project. And I didn't know what I wanted to call this project. It felt different than anything I'd ever written. And I made a joke, and my joke was, I'm gonna call it Yeet. And it for a while it was just a placeholder. But I was speaking with one of my friends who's a brilliant writer as well. Their name is Matthew Mistrokova, and they looked at it and they're like, no, the title actually is Yeet. And it's if you think about it, um, the Yeet comes from a Vine. A Vine is a old 5 second video app that we used to have that went belly up in like 2016 or 2017. And it was a little black girl that said that she's throwing a can into an empty crowd and she says it's empty. She yells yeet. And we don't know the actual trajectory of the can. We just know its origin of leaving. So it made sense because we don't know, we're not never given where the black people land, right? We're just given where we left from. And another way of this book too, it plays with and it respects and archives language. Yeet is Black language that is often misrepresented within white culture, and it allowed for me to say, "Hey, let's reclaim some of our phrases, some of our sayings." Um, so yeah, it really started off as a joke title, but as I started writing the book, I guess I started writing poems around it, which is also like to be seen within like the essays on Yeet and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think we always talk about the subconscious here because poetry is like pulling those things up? Do you think you knew that that was a great title, even as it was a joke, like somewhere deep down in your subconscious?
Probably one thing I teach all my students is I am never going to be smarter than the poem. The poem is often telling me what it needs to say, and I am just doing what it says. So there's a high chance maybe the book told me what it needed to be called, and I just needed to listen. And I listened, and here we are.
Yeah, well, I think that's how it works. There's stuff out there that's just smarter than us. It's true. Let's hear the next poem, Asters.
Yeah. This one I always dedicate to my grandmother, so who is on the cover. That's my grandmother and my grandfather on the cover. So, asters. Somehow, the language of these maps has changed. I can no longer read the direction of linear time. Often I wonder if we should make a discography of distance, catalog different ways of leaving without leaving oneself behind. I dawn from a world built on crosses aching for a flame's stubborn mouth. I think of all the ways they chose to break us in. There held sickness and sickness and sickness and sickness and sickness, and no one could tell any of them apart well enough to perform the healing. We sought grief like a harpooned whale, a clean incision into land's skull. What beauty we found, dying in pursuit of eternity. Somehow, the rain is more vibrant here. The trees have learned to blossom inward. A spiral of vibrantly mauve asters whisper to us nightly. Take care, take care, take care. I cannot help but to think my grandmother sits on the star of their petals, wishing me a safe and long journey home. I lay hyacinths at the foot of each year for her as we call a new place home. What will this look like next fall when we all live past the summer's blade?
Yeah, another beautiful poem. That was Asters from YEET by Jason B. Crawford. And you can see that the beauty and joy are two words that come up as I, reading through this book of poems. And it's something confronting really difficult subject matter and a lot of pain, but then, expressing that through joy is a really creative thing to be doing too. And I wonder if you could talk about that, about how you manage it, because it's hard to write poems that have joy. Like that's like probably the least common like emotion in poems, let alone poems on difficult subject matter that are dealing with trauma. And so I wonder how, first of all, how conscious that decision is to go toward the joy whenever possible, as it seems like you're doing, and how difficult was it to stay on that track?
So it was definitely conscious. Like I wanted to write poems about joy. When I was writing, truthfully, when I wrote every other thing I have published as a considered a book, right? I struggled with adding in something joyous. And I wrote this book between 2021 and 2023 in a time that still didn't feel joyous, right? So like I didn't feel like I was in the best place. America has always been America, right? The world has always been the world, and it's hard to write about joy in those spaces. But I wanted to. I felt like if I was going to talk about Blackness, I didn't have to only talk about Black pain. And we can talk about things that make Black people happy and what it looks like to be a Black person and happy in society. So a lot of this was me trying to prove to myself that I could be happy, and that we could write about happiness. And it's hard. It's hard to write a poem that doesn't pull on strife. I believe when we're taught to write poetry, we're taught to write from a sad emotion. And sometimes the emotion is just, let's talk about this leaf and why it's pretty, why it's beautiful, right? And if I can talk about that, why can't I talk about, why Blackness is pretty or why Blackness is beautiful, right? But it took a lot of work. It took a lot of work to not make the turn. I'm a poet that's learned the turn of like everything's good, and then here's the gut punch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how do we not gut punch? How do we finish a poem without that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like one of the main reasons poetry gets so negative is because poetry fundamentally is a way of linguistic problem solving. There's something that like we can't quite articulate, we can't get our minds around, we can't put our emotions into like a box and make sense of it, and we're struggling with something, and so having that the poem is the solution to whatever problem caused the poem into being, you know? And so then that lends itself to, though, negative things, because if it's like a problem solving thing, you start with a problem. You know, it's
Yep.
hard not to when you're problem solving. And so I think that's the difficulty of it. But then so did you find it difficult to have a sense of movement, like, because poems have a plot, they have a volta, they have an arc. And it's usually that problem solving thing, but moving through joy and angling for that at the end. Was there any strategies? Like how did you go about? Were there poems that maybe didn't go where you wanted to, and you ended up throwing them away and revising them and stuff? I'm really curious about the process of that.
There were definitely poems that there are poems that just didn't make the book. There's like about 7 or 8 poems. Like I had a version of this book done my first semester, in which is wild to say that I wrote like 30 poems in a semester for an MFA, right? But I had a version of this done in my first semester, and I it felt like a different book. It was a war between the back home language and the beautiful motif, right? Um but outside of those poems, I think even when I was writing a poem that was strictly trying to talk about joy, like I would say Ode to Bear Milk is a poem that feels it's like a break, right? And what I had to do in those moments is, instead of trying to tell a full out story or draw out some this volta, I just needed to paint a picture. And I often, when I'm trying to do that, I like put myself in a place where I stand in the middle and think, what happens if I do a full 360 in this space? What is everything that's happening, and leave nothing out, nothing to chance. And after I read the poem, if this one line doesn't make sense, or this one's not, is like dragging me down, I could pull that later. But I want to get everything that's happening in that space. And I think that that is a good technique for writing about joy, because we're often talking about a moment, and the moment doesn't have to have the volta. It just needs to be true to itself. And that's what I feel like I'm doing in those type of poems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. We usually do questions sort of later in the show, but we have some great questions already, and I wanted to pass this one on before we move past Asters, because Thomas Mixon was wondering, and I'm wondering too about, we talked about how these poems stretch out, and you have to turn the book sideways to read it. And Thomas Mixon was wondering if you could talk more about the process of deciding on the spacing within the poems, specifically for Asters. Was it by feel, some underlying structure, loose or uncompromising, etc.? Thanks.
Well, thank you for that question. And a lot of it was this in itself, and there are a couple poems in the book which I think of as like map poems, where I'm like trying to draw out an island or a land structure. And it feels like this one for me was a land structure that is a little loose. So it that's why it has that mono stitch. So it's like small clusters of loose land that is hard to grasp onto. I also have it's kind of waved. I wanted to feel really waved on the space while still taking up space, right? There's a lot of white space in between that allows for me to feel like I'm slipping through or falling through the poem in itself. That also brings in a little bit of like unsureness. Like I'm not 100% positive on the place that we've landed on in this poem. Like, is this home, or are we searching for a new home? And the biggest thing was, a part of it was also line breaks. I love a good line break. I believe the line itself should tell multiple things, like multiple stories. So I broke this poem up in line breaks before I even added the spaces. And as I wanted to make that, like that loose sand effect, that's when the actual spaces came in.
Hmm. Yeah, and so we can see that on the screen right now, the ways that poem stretches out, and What is your writing process like as far as just getting the words purely on the page? You know, some people write by hand in notebooks and then modify it later. Some people write as they go. You know, how do you encounter that from the very beginning of the draft to the finished product? What's that process look like?
For me, I have a very strange process where I write everything in a prose block in my notes app. So I will write start to finish, wherever I think the poem is, over however many days it takes. I'm writing a prose block of words until I say, this is a finished piece. Once that is a finished piece, I then copy it and paste it into a Google Doc. And I then go back and start to add line breaks, start correcting any typos I see, or deciding is it going to be like a not a triptych, a tercet, or is this a couplet? Like what? How do I want this shaped? And then from there, I start doing the editing process. But the Notes app is a raw data space for me, even though I could add line breaks and all of that. It acts as an actual notepad of me just writing down my thoughts and feelings and how I think the poem should go. And I truly think that separation from the two gives me a chance to just say everything on the page. I'm going to say everything I think I need to say, and then I'll go back and start pulling away from there. And then like 6 or 7 drafts down the line, I send it to my friends and ask them to tell me it's bad.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, dividing it like that. And I mean, I can't even imagine, like, I can't type on a phone well enough to ever do it that way. I don't know what is wrong with my fingers. But is that process, so you said it's like the finished body, like just a block of text that is the poem. Is that then an oral, like auditory version of the poem? Because people have mentioned already in the comments too about the sort of casual music that's filled with these poems. Like there's a sense of that, even as all the text, they move around and there's a lot of playing with the space. There is a rhythm to that feels like very much that it's written by ear at some point. So is it like the oral space and then the visual space? Like, is that part of the separation?
I would say so. I also, part of the process of me writing the poem is listening to myself. So I will walk around, my house, or sometimes in New York, sometimes in like on trains and stuff, and I'm saying the words out loud as I'm writing them because I want to hear how it sounds before I put it on paper. So yeah, that I've written, I've said to myself already before it even touches the paper. And I come from a background of like I was a music major for a full semester. I know I was so good at it. And like I was a voice major and I wanted to sing. So I do have a lot of ideals of what music should be within a poem.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, let's hear another one. And it's another one that plays with form and what you're doing. It's translations of an ancient text.
I love this poem for many reasons, but it also feels like I was writing in like Webster Dictionary. So, um, translations of an ancient text for Chris L. Butler. In the New World, we still say John, as in noun, the spot, noun, the lick, noun, the good, noun, the what I need at this moment. As in verb, the words I forget are special until I am holding them again in my arms. We still say we done, as in adjective, inevitable, as in verb, never question our mother's capable hands, as in verb, she breaks the chicken at the joint, severs the spine, always finds enough for 2 meals and one split bone. In the New World, we retired the word noun cop and noun verb police and noun prison and verb remain silent and verb silencing and the list of other words we no longer need to govern us, like noun government or noun president or noun whiteness. We still say What's good, G? As in noun, hello, my love, that I cannot name in public. As in verb, I am here for you to talk or not talk about it all. As in verb, let me unfold the table of my palms and bring sweet fruit to your mouth. As in adjective, I'm choosing to ungroom this tongue for you, blessed boy running from his own chalk shadow. As in adjective, I'm sorry, I do not have more to spare.
Yeah, another powerful poem that was translations of an ancient text from Jason B. Crawford's book, YEET. Another question from the audience that was interesting already, Jason, is from Jeff Stumpo. He says, Jason, you might get to this on your own, but when, not if when, I pick up the book, would you suggest I approach it as Afrofuturism or Afropresentism?
That is a great question.
I know, that's why I had to pass it along.
Thank you, Jeff. So it is technically Afrofuturism. I say technically, and the reason being is when I wrote the book, the idea is these translations from an ancient text, the essays on Yeat, the history of an arc, all of these, like these pop quizzes, all of these poems are set in the future. They're saying this is what happened in the past, but we want to archive it. And I understand where like the presentism feels right there, but it is as if these are being written from ancestors in the future. But yeah, I never thought of it this way. And now I'm like, am I rethinking my entire collection of discography?
Yeah, well, it is a fascinating way that the time kind of collapses. Speaking of, we haven't talked yet about how you came into poetry, and that's always a topic that we love talking about. What you mentioned that you were in music, music major at first. So I assume that is an entry point too. But do you remember, like, what was it that made you fall in love with poetry? Was there a certain poem or a certain experience that you had? When did that happen?
I think I have one of the most weird and convoluted ways into poetry, and I love it. I was other than like I wrote a couple poems in high school, but like that was like for class, right? I thought I was like good at it. Those poems are buried. We don't ever need to revisit those. But I was an elementary ed major, double majored in math, and I was real good at the math. I did not like the program I was in for elementary ed. But I did like a writing class I had. So I switched majors to creative writing. I was going to be a fiction major. And I was like, yep, I'm writing books and it's going to be so cool. And I start like typing up. I literally have a draft of like the first 5 chapters of not a collection, a book, right? I had a professor in one of my classes that pushed me to poetry. He kept saying I was a poet. And I was like, I'm not. You're a liar, and that's fine. But he kept pushing. And I remember I got a F on a poem because he was like, it's too abstract, it doesn't make sense, and he made me rewrite it. And I rewrote it out of spite, and I wrote it spitefully, and he loved it. And I was like, I guess he's right. Maybe I am more of a poet than I thought. And then when I took my fiction course, I felt like all of my short fiction pieces felt poetic. Like I was trying to do the pretty thing. So ultimately I gave up and gave in. And I was like, I guess, let me write these poems. And here we are, 13 years later, still doing them.
Do you remember, you'd mentioned earlier, letting the poem speak is being really important, which I completely agree with. And do you remember the first time a poem you wrote spoke to you? Because I have an experience like that too. I was an undergraduate science major, and there's this poem like, hey, damn, where'd that come from? You know, like how did I didn't know that, or I know I felt that way. Like there's this weird, like something clicks, Did that happen for you where you first, because there is this like, I'm, writing and I'm presenting and there's a way that the music you can, but then the real thing that makes it stick for people, I think, is that sense of it speaking for you. So I'm curious about the first time you felt that.
And it's funny, I do, and it's so many years later. Like I was like I loved poetry and I was really decent. I was okay at poetry until like this experience where I just let it happen. Um I I am going to say this was super dangerous of me what I did. And I'm acknowledging that now. Do not be me, be better than me. I used to write poems while driving. And by write them, I mean literally type them in my phone. Because I had cruise control, whatever. It's not actually safe. First time I came to New York before I moved here, I didn't write anything I drove, did not write anything the whole 10 and a half hours I was in the car. I crossed through the Holland Tunnel into New York, and a poem came to me immediately. And it was like, this black voice of trying to survive summer and what that meant. And I had to write it. So I just like got it all on page and then another poem came to me. And now mind you, once you get into New York, for me to get to Brooklyn driving, still 45 minutes. 3 miles, 45 minutes, right? I think I wrote in that car time, I wrote 4 poems that just out of nowhere, which started to be my first collection of like my first chapbook, Summertime Blind, out of nowhere. And I think that was the moment where I said, "Hey, I think these poems know way more than." It was like 2019. I was like, "Oh, these poems know way more than I know. I need to stop, trying so hard and let them tell me what's supposed to be happening."
hmm Yeah, I mean that always just seems like the big breakthrough. Is when you stop trying and start letting it happen. Well, let's read the next poem, which may be a great segue because it's essays on YEET, but then a roadmap after
Mm.
Simone White.
I do have a small thing I have to say about this essay on Yeat. All the essays on Yeat, it's like a bunch of poems, all same title. They're me interacting with, or I read like someone else's work, and I was like, I really had an idea, so it's like an essay on their work, right? This one, I went to a reading at the Guggenheim. It was on sound. All of the readers were black, and Simone White was one of the readers. And the first thing is, she never touched the stage. She walked up to the mic that was for the Q&A in the audience, and music started playing. She had a video playing on the screen, and she starts reading her poems. After like some time, a person on the right of me stands up and starts dancing while the music is playing and Simone is reading. And they dance around the edge of the whole Guggenheim, which is like shaped like a circle, all the way to the stage. And like almost like perfect timing, they touched the stage and the music cut off. Simone stopped reading, but they kept dancing to silence for 2 minutes. And it was mesmerizing. And I knew I had to write about it. Um, and that's how we got here. So this is Essays on Yeat, a roadmap after Simone White. If you're wondering where we are, here the grass grows thistled and thorned, unconcerned by what could cause it harm, stupidly blooming everywhere it can touch, which is everywhere next to the mouth of a mothering creek. And yes, the creeks here bloom too. Wild daisy chain of water lilying its way around the greening bark of old oaks, which are still blooming into a perfect orange. And I must have mentioned the apples here are so bright that even the crisp air takes sips from them. And the tangerines bloom their sharpest during what you once knew as winter, but we know as nothing ever dies. We never run out of space. The land itself cracks, a smile wide enough for us to build on its teeth. And yes, here too we dance, and the dance is an act of blooming, and there is no tomorrow or yesterday, only right now, and uncles licked in the mystique of a charcoal grill. And I must have mentioned the trees before, their vines tangled and thriving, their trunks wet with breathing, the small triangles of flush light peering through their leaves. It cover us in silk as we dance. Yes, this blooming is survival, a dance we continue even after our music drifts into the windbreaker whistle of the leaves, and we dance to our own silence, the jive break pop of our bodies collecting sweat in all of each other's movements, all as one. We dance circles around each other's, a rotating hand of a bracket clock freezing us in a swirl step where we can sound out the drop of the knees as they buckle from the soft age lent to us by sand, the dust clacking beneath our soles, our dreads, a gust of tambourines, boom boom cacking to the silence we are holding, the blades in our fingers excavating the joy and the lack of noise. Look how loud we have become in all of this space. We are soaked in felicity, our mouths clayed into silent laughter. We dance like black blood cells suturing wounds, spiraling silence. Listen, hear the joints crack out of place, the small step of praise pressing joy into the dirt, a praise so holy ghost that we perform to this trap beat, a praise so grotesque that we still come out unbloodied, our snarls and yips piercing the night, a praise of blooming bodies hollering into the dark, a praise only the dead could create. Could you imagine a place loving us for being alive? I must admit, this isn't a map for you to find us. Rather, to know we made it safe. There's so much green in the palms of our planet that is starting to hue the sky. If I take a deep enough breath, my lungs will bloom wild orchids, their stems hugging my arteries. It has become so difficult to say beautiful and not mean alive.
Yeah, that's a great poem. That was Essays on Yeet, a roadmap after Simone White, from the book Yeet by Jason B. Crawford. And that you hear like such rhythm in that poem, such energy and such movement to the music. And you mentioned composing that on a phone and going through, but I imagine there's a lot of spoken out, like as you edit as you go, like there must be very oral as far as the composition goes, given that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As I'm editing the poems, I'm still saying them out loud. I read the poem about 30 times before it's like sent out anywhere because I want to make sure it sounds the way I have this naivety that I can make it sound the same for everyone, and everyone in the entire world when they read it is going to read it the same way I wrote it if I do it enough. I know it's incorrect, but if I believe that, I write the poem like this.
Yeah. Another time, I should say, if you're enjoying this conversation, please do click the like button. There's always a lot more people who are watching live than have clicked like so far, and clicking like helps us out a lot. Also, if you have any questions for Jason, please leave them in the chat window, especially on YouTube. I kind of peek over at Facebook, but mostly YouTube. Leave a question there, and I'll pass anything else on. And Dick Westheimer, before we move on, wanted to know more about just the form of essays on Yeet. Can you explain because really the structure of all the poems is really creative in a lot of different ways. We saw the dictionary type poem, and we have these essays. There are a whole bunch of other ones too that we haven't seen. A lot of visual poems that are really cool too. But tell us more about this, because there are a lot of essays on YEET, and I don't know how. Elaborate a little bit more for Dick and everybody else.
Yeah, it started off with the first essay on Yeat that is in the book, the one for Douglas Kearney, which played with how Kearney plays with collapsed language. And Douglas Kearney came to my campus when I was in undergrad, and he was like the first Black poet I met in person that kind of made me feel like I could write about anything, right? I was like, oh, because he has like a poem for Voltron in the Black Automaton. I think he has a poem for Power Rangers, right? So like that's where I like was like, oh, I can really talk about myself. So like that poem was almost me paying homage to Kearney, whereas the other ones I would read a poem, I would read a book, and I would then try to either write something in that style. So I would say like the Zan Phillips one was like me trying to write a poem in their style, or this one was me trying to encapsulate what I saw. There's the Hanifa Duraqib one, which it comes directly from his collection of how can Black people write about flowers in a time like this. So all of those elements, I was like, oh, I want to do that too. I want to try this, but I want to try it in my own way. And then I have to pay this person homage. Like it's required of me doing this because I wouldn't be here if they didn't do what they did first.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Really well said. I wanted to ask too about because as you're really riffing with this sort of musical energy in a lot of poems, there is a lot of references that come up and a lot of allusions and a lot of it's sort of a collage of different things moving through literary references, cultural references. And I'm wondering about how you think about balancing accessibility with that complexity. Like how much do you think about the reader understanding everything you're referencing and versus not?
In this collection, and I think in all my work, but definitely this collection, the only person I really cared to understand it was my people. And I wanted for any Black person that would be of my caliber of like person, right, to pick the book up and open it and say, "Oh, I feel seen." And for everyone else, it is a backseat. You're getting a mission into what I believe my culture is, from where I grew up and from the people I grew up around, and just you should feel lucky that you're here, right? Um, and that's the only accessibility I offer there, right? Like this book isn't for everyone, but anyone can read it. I wrote this book for Black people to find safety.
Hmm. Yeah. Along those lines too, when you're pushing through and moving through a lot of different topics and stuff, I always wonder about truth and accuracy. How much like where do you have to do research to make it accurate, and where does imagination, do you let that take over? Is there sort of a continuum as far as that goes?
Yeah, I mean, like for the most part, a lot of it is like lived behavior, right? So like things I've grew up around and like I remember from growing up around. There's some things like I look up. Even like in that last poem, Boom Boom Cack is like something from Making the Band. Like L'Oreal Gibson would say it all the time with when she was dancing, right? And that's like a moment. And every once in a while I'll do the poem and someone will be like, ah, I got you. I remember that, right? But some things I still do look up and say, I want like I want this to be very accurate. Like I don't want this to feel like a passed down tale. I want it to feel like a written tale. But yeah, I'm a storyteller at heart. I was a fiction writer first, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's do. You want to do two more poems before we
Yeah,
go?
absolutely. I would love to do the history. of an arc because I never do this poem. It is on page
Great.
47. I believe on 47 for you. And it's going to be right after Getting Religion.
Okay. Do it this way.
I'm going to need a new reader copy. Mine is starting to fall apart.
Okay, I got it. I got it. History of the art.
Okay. This was written as a pop quiz because I wanted to play, because I wanted to have fun. Um, History of the Arc, a pop quiz. 1. As all things do, this must start. A. In fire, kissing the calves of our brick homes. So easily spread was the French-tongued flame. Embers cascading the clay-smeared doors. B. In Pompeii, the bent frame of the earth's crust. A world ravaged by its own copper lungs. Stones loud enough to crack a glass wake wide open. C. In a gust of wind aimed at our bodies, parallel to the tearing of the earth's paper bones. All that is laid in ash and dust and gold debris spreading across the sea. D. In leaving. I've gathered enough lineage, A, to string together the origin of my birth. Its wet diligence heavy in my palms. How to decipher the blood without spilling it, before the mess of what hands can offer in return. B. To know I do not belong among so few maple trees. I'm a full growing willow split at the curl of my smile. C. To watch the beads of my mother's mother's mother scatter across the wood floor. And in this I understand leaving. Fabricating enough limbs to build a bridge or boat or ladder or javelin or anything solid enough to carry my people home. D. To question the legitimacy of a name. 3. At first, it was simple. A. To gather my kin by their tendering roots. My potted fingers, tiny shovels showing what love is capable of when given back the tools, even after the rot has set. B. To till the oak, fold the dirt, mine the air, make the craft, salt the wood, build the glue, brace the throat, fill the mouth, sharpen the water, lift the sound, till the, fold the, mine the, make the, salt the, build the, brace the, fill the, sharpen the, fold, salt, build, fill, lift, make, fill, and lift, and lift, and lift, and lift, and see. To question the possibilities of rain. We deluge our eyes until we are our own desert bowl, scooped from the moistening sand. We pulled meat from the sunflower stems, and this we call the feast, made sloppy by our own mangled arms. D. To pull the ocean towards us by its feet. 4. The first question asked was, A. Do we start by crafting a map? B. How do we carry our dead in our mouths? C. Do we know when in space we will land? D. How do we choose whom to leave behind?
Yeah, so that was History of the Ark, again from YEET by Jason B. Crawford. And it's another great title. And, the collection as a whole has a great title. Some of these poems have really wonderful titles. I'm curious if you have any suggestions on how you approach titles given that.
Oh, titles are devastatingly hard, actually. Um, I like to try to pull. Oh, I'm about to say something that I didn't do for this book. I like to try to pull a line out of the poems to see like that is the title. The next collection that I am currently shopping around actually has one title and it's just every time. So I like to do that too. I love a series. I love a sequence. I love a series. But for these, a lot of the times it was me asking a question or trying to say something and then writing after the title. Right. So it's like, what am I trying to say? One of my favorite exercises is to take an old poem and I do what I call the bay leaf prompt. I pull three lines from it. What I think my favorite line, the line that I think has the most interesting words, and the line that I think is summing up the poem. And the line that I think is summing up the poem, I actually use as the title of the poem, and then I use my favorite line as the first line, and then as I'm writing the poem, I'll like throw the interesting line somewhere in there when I get stuck. But that's another way I come up with titles. Because I'm honestly, who knows how to title anything,
Hmm.
right? Like, who knows what something should be called?
Yeah. Well, it seems like, just play is a key to your process. Playing with titles that the Bayleaf seems like a fun game to play with a poem too. So I think that's maybe the key of letting, when you're playing with the poem, you're letting the poem participate too, I guess, at the end of the day.
It knows more than me, I'm telling you. With that prompt too, my favorite, like the reason I call it a bay leaf prompt is if once I'm done with the poem, if I feel like those lines are no longer needed, I can pull them out because they're just seasoning to the poem, like it's literally bay leaves. So I can pull them out if I need to.
Oh yeah, that's great. Well, let's wrap it up with one more question and then one last poem too. But so what are you working on right now? Is the question, and what are you working on that you couldn't have written 5 years ago, just to mix it up?
Ooh. So currently I'm working on an essay collection on Black queer loneliness. That is actually, after this, I will be writing 500 words because I'm writing 500 words a day, and I am working on or finished and trying to work on a collection of ekphrastic poems that is after the work of Alvin Baltrop, a Black queer photographer that was from New York. So those are my two big problem projects and problems. um, I think. 5 years ago, I was not in New York yet. And I don't think I was connected to writing in a way that I am now. I had a bigger head than I do now, right? Like I thought I was better than I am now, and I'm actually better than I was. So I think what I would not have been able to write is this exercise collection. I don't think I had the language
Hmm.
that I do now. Um, and the skill that I do now to approach essays like I do.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think those are the two biggest things for me.
Oh, very cool. Well, let's close out with one last poem then from Yeet.
Let's do something that is joyous. Although I was called out on this one for it not being joyous. Let's do. Actually, I'm lying. Let's do Ars Poetica, which is page 75 for me. It is after Essay on Yeet, a friendship poem.
Hang on one second. Do I have it? Yeah, I have it right here. Okay.
Perfect. Ready?
Yep. Go ahead.
Cool. Um, this was actually originally going to be the end of the book, and I'm really glad I didn't end it this way, but we'll end it this way today. Ars Poetica. I know, I know. What gorgeous world I built in this aftershock. I mentioned the trees and they rot. How beautiful is that? I've carried some of my people on my tongue and left the rest dry, gamble with who was supposed to survive. I folded the poem into a boat safe enough for my loves to drown. By my side, I tested the buoyancy of paper, money or otherwise, all turned transparent as lung. I must apologize for acting on what could have been. a dream lining my coat pockets in dust. I must be foolish. Is it not worth the sacrifice of bodies that could have never entered these poems? Oh, holiest, hope-filled thing, I wish to save you from the truth. There is no tomorrow here for things like us. I say us and mean a litany of flies, all black wings crusting over the sides. I say what if and mean regardless. There will be flowers, but who knows for whom they will be grown. I speak of the trees and mean the dead air rapturing my hands, and maybe it took too long to write this. The crows have already missed their tickets home.
That was Ars Poetica from YEET by Jason B. Crawford. Jason, thanks so much for being a guest today. It's a really fabulous book, really fun hearing you talk about it and sharing the great poems. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor, and I love Rattle. I love this. I mean, I've been throwing poems your way for a long time because I love you all, so thank you.
Well, thanks so much. Keep them coming. Thanks, Jason. It was Jason B. Crawford. You can find all of their work at the website, jasonbcrawford.com, just like it sounds, Jason B. Crawford, CRAWFORD.com. Find YEET, find Year of the Unicorn Kidz, other stuff that's going on as well there. Now, I forgot to preview before the show started that we're going to do our Prompt Poet of the Month as well. We have the special revealing of that in the second hour, so sit tight for that. We also have a regular invited prompt lines. The prompt for this week was to write a poem that begins precisely where you currently are in life, but lands somewhere else entirely. That was your prompt for this week. If you had a poem like that, you had to submit it by midnight last night. And every week, Katie invites about 10 or so people on based on what you send in, trying to keep it interesting and diverse, give it a mix of people, new faces, old faces. We try to keep it all balanced as much as we can. That is the invited prompt lines with that prompt. Also, your Prompt Poet of the Month coming up in just a minute. So we write back with a whole lot more poetry. We're back. Thanks so much for your patience. I'm here with our creative editor, Prompt Lines. It's
somebody you've heard of before.
Yeah, and my wife, Katie Dozier. Hey, Katie. That never gets old.
No, I know. I'm sure everyone loves it.
They do. It's genuine, though. You can cycle through all the different things you do.
Well, same for you, my friend.
Okay. So it was the special time where you got to pick the Prompt Poet of the Month.
I did, and I am very excited to welcome to the Rattlecast Michelle Meyer. Welcome back. Hi. Yes, we can, Michelle. Hi. Well, we really love this poem. Tried to put on my poker face when you read it the first time. One of those poems where reading submissions, I have to pause after because it hit me so hard. So I was wondering if you wouldn't mind starting by sharing it again for us, please.
Visit when
Sorry,
I was
Michelle.
4.
I'm going to cut you off because I didn't
Okay.
have you on me. You're on
So
now.
sorry. It was his fault entirely.
Okay.
I'm so sorry for the disorienting moment, but please read it again. We'd love to hear all of it again.
Thank you.
That's okay. It gave me a little practice. Okay. And the poem, the title leads directly into the poem. Upon meeting my biological father at the age of 23, he told me a story about the time he came to visit when I was 4. How he said hi and I said hi, and he asked me all the usual questions. What's your name? How old are you? Where's your dad? How I answered all the questions. My name is Missy. I'm 4 years old. My mom and I don't need a dad. How he believed that I didn't, still believes that I don't. How that's why he left.
Well, Michelle, I think we can all agree that this is an incredibly moving poem, and what is, I think, at the heart for me of why it is able to reach the level of impact, on top of the emotionalness that's there, is the simplicity around the language and the restraint with which you wrote it. So I was very curious if when you wrote it, is this, are we looking at the 2 millionth draft of a poem that started out with way more words, or what was the process like for you in this?
Actually, no, it was restrained immediately. And I think that it was almost like I was coming at it as the 4-year-old.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because that's really how I would have approached it. And it's actually kind of an old story at this point. And it's one I've told several times, but the prompt actually gave me a new context because it's usually the first part that gets told, which is sort of cute and precocious. But the backstory, I was allowed to explore it a little bit, more because of the prompt. So and when I have told it, it really is, with that 4-year-old in mind, like, oh, my mom and I don't need a dad, and isn't that cute? And but there's a larger consequence to that. So
Yeah, and I think too what's so interesting is we get this sense that that 23 wasn't yesterday also from the poem without you directly saying that. And in fact, I was so moved by this poem that we recorded an episode of the Poetry Space today, and I talked about your poem too. So if you want to check it out on Friday, we will also be talking more about your poem. But I think it's one of the most powerful poems I've seen in a long time. And thank you for sharing it and the risk taking and the honesty and the authenticity, because that right there is what I love about poetry. So thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Yeah, and it's like a classic rattle poem, kind of really.
Yeah.
That narrative that just the power and emotional heart hits so hard, so simply too. Yeah.
And the economy of language. Well, I have a lot to say. I've said many times the word count of the poem, which is always a good sign, right? Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you
Michelle.
so much. Thanks.
Yes, that was Michelle Meyer with the prompt poet of the month this month. So as a reminder, if you're new to the show, every month we have all these prompts every week. And one gets published in Rattle itself, which Katie picks at the end of the month.
Online. And then also, too, I often recommend poems to consider for print when I really love them. So it is a way to get consideration from multiple angles.
Yep, and more the poems we're publishing are coming from this.
From prompt poems, because the
people.
truth is, as we continue to write as a community and a group, everybody is continually writing better, which makes my job more and more fun every month. So thanks for that also.
There we go. And funny how that works.
Funny how that
Yeah.
works. It's almost like reading each other's poems and interacting critically in a positive light is a good thing.
You'd think, maybe.
You'd think.
Yeah, or just don't even bother reading poems.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just bitter for my Facebook post where people acted like it was controversial to say we should read. So I will die on that hill. Okay. Moving right
Moving
along.
on to this week's prompt, though.
Right.
This week's prompt was to read it again. It was to write a poem that begins.
That's funny. I always feel so silly when I write those. Like, write a poem. Yes, that is going to be part of this prompt.
Hopefully it's a poem. That's your challenge.
I'm going to mix it up someday. They'll never see it coming. Okay.
Write a grocery list. It begins precisely where you currently are in life, but lands somewhere else entirely. So what did you do with this one, Katie? I haven't read this one yet, although someone else has.
Yeah. So we, without violating another Facebook post I made about over summarizing potentially the poem before you read it, but we did have this really great experience of getting to go and interview my favorite songwriter, Frank Turner, for another future episode. It's been a big week for the poetry space, as you can see. And then we stuck around for the concert, which was a really fun experience. And this is what stood out to me, and Tim hasn't seen it, so it's fun.
Yeah, okay, let's hear it.
The other context that you need is that his band name, his backup band, is the Sleeping Souls. Otherwise, it might look a little bit melodramatic there in the title. So, Frank Turner and the Sleeping Souls. A girl with spiked hair is jumping on my toes, unaware, and with each bounce, the stage lights are fireworks above her gelled-up skyscrapers. We are salmon jumping in the stream of music. You can't fix the world if all you have is a hammer. Jumping our way upstream, I let the punk girl poke me with her sea urchin spikes as we grow hotter with each crowd surfer, tubing the starfish over our tides until we are not just fish or a stream, but the ocean itself. And I wash up on the shore 10 years ago in Mexico on a beach with so many rocks that walking was a tumble of all my jangled thoughts, and how I'm here now in the House of Blues, getting stepped on by a stranger that's become a friend, because I still believed back then that I would one day want to be this awake again.
Very cool. Yeah, and all the internal rhymes in there, especially, and really captured that experience too. Katie.
Yeah, and it was taking me back to because when I first listened to his music, I was in Mexico where I was playing online poker all the time and listening to his song "I Still Believe." So it was really fun, and I'm excited for people to get to hear what he had to say about songwriting and writing poetry as well. So.
Definitely, yeah. He just wrote his first poem, probably inspired by Katie.
Great, and I don't know what you wrote this week. So.
Yeah, well, I took the prompt very literally and just started writing about this room to see what would happen.
Nice.
So I was sitting over there, and
true story.
True story.
Hard to believe, guys.
I know, facts. Yeah, and so this is what I did. This is called Loop. Once you think of the once that was, there's no going back to not going back. You're already there, lounging in the love seat of a listless day, the dull work of the week half done on your desk as evening's light labors up the last switchbacks of the spines of the mountains of books that you've piled on the ottoman. That same light illuminates the leaves of the artificial tree in the center of the room. A ceiling fan stirs its springy branches just enough that the shadows on the wall feel as real as they are. Love was easy then, all your dreams laid out like clothes on a bed for a trip you'd been planning all your life, and you know that you'll make it, like the sun will make it up its Everest of books, then the ladder of the shelf behind it, day after day climbing like a clock works until it can't, until it doesn't, didn't, won't, and you wonder why you were lying there in that hammock of a chair when you could have been back in the kitchen kissing your wife, how you weren't then until you were like you did. There you go.
What a great, I really enjoyed that.
Well,
That's really neat. I really feel like I'd follow you anywhere in that loop.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah. There's surroundings.
It's always so great too when I know that you didn't actually spend that long on this poem, spoiler alert. And so it's always fun seeing what you come up with in a very limited amount of time.
Well, thank you. And this is from another manuscript. So I've got like 3 books going simultaneously, which is very fun. I haven't touched this one in a bit, but it's a fun one to come back to. All right. So that is my poem for this week. Let's see what everybody else has. And like we always do, we'll go first to our community host. I'm so bad with words.
You're
for a
doing
poet.
good.
Okay. Dick Westheimer. Hey, Dick, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. And I loved both your poems. Like Tim, if you spent 5 minutes on it, it was 5 minutes well spent.
Oh, thanks.
And Jason's, I loved the sonics of Jason's work. It was just really terrific. So this might be my last time in March on the Rattlecast because we're traveling to Europe on Wednesday, and we'll get back maybe the 23rd, so I might be on that one. But if not, I just want to remind folks that Aaron Murphy is our guest host on
The
on
last
program.
Sunday of the month for the community reading.
The last Sunday of the month. I'll be back. I'll
Oh,
be back
good.
in town.
I assume you'll be hosting a poetry reading on your travels as well, just, with family or any.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. I was actually thinking of feeling what it was like to sort of take a break from all my online poetry activity and
Wow.
readings and stuff like that, and kind of fill back up with reading poetry and so.
I don't know. I don't know if the poetry world can handle you doing this. I don't know if we're prepared. You have such a foot in so many different communities, and you're holding all these things up.
Right, it's gonna be a
I hope we
recession.
can make it. We should have prepared for this, guys.
That's the plate spinner, right?
Yeah,
which,
right.
which I assure you I could not do.
Well, that's
So,
wonderful, though, that you're doing that, and you're out there poem hunting. That's what I call traveling.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Yeah. But I sort of want to hold that back and just imagine that I'm not poem hunting, but just there. And if the poems come, just let them happen.
Good. No pressure. That's the best way to ensure you end up spending every waking moment writing. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I took the beginning of the prompt very literally too. I just sat down to write and exactly what was happening at that exact time in my life, and then let the poem take off from there. So I was baking cornbread for dinner guests. So here we go. There's cornbread in the oven, baking at 400 degrees in a cast iron skillet. My secret ingredient is maple syrup drizzled over the top right as I pop the pan in the oven. I've got a few minutes till I test it with a toothpick, and I thread my way back to the time I planted the corn from seeds my friend Sarah gave me. The plants grew 10 feet tall, and I had to climb a ladder to harvest the cobs. If my kids were still kids then, they would have slept out there in a fairy queendom of their own making at a time when they loved dirt and playing in a bower open to the stars, and slept all winter in the loft of our barn in a nest of straw bales covered with a tarp. These children were perfect beings who had more to teach me then than now. But I never wanted to sleep in a barn, and fairies have no place in my world now or theirs as we bake our way through our days, them with their 2026 version of 9 to 5s, which means working late after the kids are asleep, arguing with their mates about whose turn it is to take out the trash, about which one spends too much time on their phones, which is a lot like their dad when he's not baking in an iron skillet he bought 50 years ago, or taking the compost out to the bin because it really is his turn, and serving the still warm cornbread to friends who brought wine and sorbet for dessert, which is made sweeter when I get a text from my son holding a loaf of his fresh-made sourdough in one arm and his baby boy in the other. Parenthood, alternating planets in retrograde.
Yeah, very cool haiku at the end. I love
Yeah,
that.
definitely. And also, too, it makes me really want to bake cornbread. I have my great-grandmother's cast iron cornbread, in the shape of corn cast iron.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a little dicey. It's hard to get out. I just use a skillet and put a little olive oil in the bottom, preheat the pan to 400 and pour the batter in, and then that maple syrup. Oh my goodness. I just want
And you
some
grow
of
your
that.
own corn, so I assume that you put some of that in there?
Yeah, so this was maize corn that we grew, that our friend gave us, the seeds. It was heritage, and they literally did grow 10 feet tall. And we harvested so much that it was like 6 years ago. We're still pulling it from the freezer and grinding it and
Oh, wow.
making cornbread from it.
Oh, I'm so jealous. Well, have a wonderful trip, and thanks again for all that you do as the community host.
I appreciate such a treat. Yeah, and the last one was just as good as the first. I don't know if I've been on since then, but it was a fabulous, warm, convivial, and great poetry.
Oh, great.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, well, safe travels, Dick. Always such a pleasure. Can't wait to see you.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, it's Dick Westheimer with Dinner Guests, and now that we have the whole cooking show,
Yeah, sorry about that. A little bit.
Well, I think the algorithm is going to like it. We'll probably get a lot more viewers.
Oh,
as they
good.
stream in.
I'll share a recipe.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Now let's go to Amanda Harris.
Hi guys, fun to
Hey,
be back.
Amanda.
It's great to see you.
Hi.
And I want to also
Yeah.
have your wonderful reappearance serve as a reminder to anybody. We're having some people that weren't submitting for publication were just, sending into the old email in the old format. So as a reminder, if you want to reappear, you've got to go to Submittable. That's how we're doing it.
Right.
So Amanda, it's great to see you, and you're our shot of espresso as I see it.
Yes, I'm everybody's shot of espresso. Home. Home is the feather with legs. It imagines itself a country, and then from that country, the vein that built it. In an afterthought, declaring itself to be a dream, I pretend like blankets to assume the shape of a vein. Veins in this poem are the sisters of bats, the disease of an overactive mind. I imagine myself a vein, and from that vein see my home. Vernon Baker says that home is where the heart can laugh without shyness. Shyness befits the pillow that built it.
That is a cool ass line.
Yeah, it really is. I love that with the shyness befits the pillow that built. I can really and I love how too that gives me an image of a head absent from the pillow and that it's there. So it's a fun experience. Great to see you again, Amanda.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, it was Amanda Harris with Home. Next, let's go to Jeff Stumpo.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Jeff. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. I'm quickly addressing the listeners. If you are just listening to this on a podcast and you heard how Jason B. Crawford read, go back and watch because the enjambment in YEET, A Roadmap After Simone White, is some of the best I have ever seen in my life. So,
Wonderful.
breaks.
Good. I approve of that listener note. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, so Anomaly Road. It's a perfectly normal day, which is just to say the melting snow galumphs off the roof, and we wheel the irritated generator to the truck, and the kids are having a sleepover tonight, and in Iran we're dropping bombs and firing missiles, and Iran is firing back, and there's a trailer for the Backrooms movie on YouTube, and AI is maybe not alive, but maybe malicious. All the same, and we accidentally put the garbage out a day early, shambling in stupor, and it's a perfectly normal day. Just look at the clouds compressed by the sky. Look at the headline, a damn royal or former royal or cabal member. Look at the drama, only that's the distraction. Isn't it the hand they have you look at while the invisible hand of the market? No, oh no, not that hand. The other hand wherein the Secretary of Health recommends a moldy RNA. No, not that. Look and look and look and look. Over there, far over there. Don't notice the suicidal snow edging closer to the roof's edge. If you take the generator to the small engine repair shop and its clanking reassurances, turn to page XXX. If you attend to the suicidal roof, turn to page YYY. If you chat with your shambling neighbor at the garbage can, turn to page ZZZ.
So Jeff, we have to hear about the project a little bit if you feel comfortable sharing it that you talked a little bit about in the note, because I find this fascinating as well.
I'll try to not do too much, but I write best in projects. So whenever I'm on with y'all in May, that was a series of poems that I wrote in the course of a year and just went into them. Last year, 13 months, a single writing project. I want to write a choose your own adventure book of poems, which has been done. It's been done before. Meg Ford. Oh no, I can't remember the name of the book. It's through Right Bloody. No, it's through Button. I'm sorry. But Meg Ford has a choose your own adventure poetry book. But I want to do something called Choose Your Own Cataclysm. That's a bunch of competing apocalypses that you take yourself through in verse.
Wow. That is really exciting and so you. And I have to say, this looks like a peek inside of our minds, I think, for a lot of us this week and how fast it's running, inconceivably so. So thanks for writing this and taking us through that experience and giving us a project to look forward to.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much, Jeff. As Jeff Stumpo with Anomaly Road. Yeah, I can't wait to see that project too.
Okay.
Next, let's go to a first-time caller with Samantha Schnell.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so
Hi,
much for being
Samantha.
here.
Yeah, great to see you.
And where are you calling from, by the way?
I'm in New York City.
Great.
Nice.
Well, would you like to go ahead and read your poem, and then we'll talk a little bit about it?
Sure.
Great.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. This is called Red. Through my window, I see red bricks baked in sunlight, and they remind me of Mars, where rust-colored rocks yawn into the dusty wind while waiting for a more distant sun to rise. Their loneliness is geological, down to the red-ridged bone. Volcanoes slumber under sand-whipped storms, and the sun, when it comes, is an eye passing wordlessly over a stranger's face. From here, blue and green look warm.
Well, Samantha, I really loved, if you could scroll down, because I wanted to quote the end of the poem, sorry. I really loved, and especially, is an eye passing wordlessly over a stranger's face as a description of the sun. I found that really startling and fascinating. It's so hard to describe the sun in a new way, of course, but I really sat there and enjoyed, sort of obsessing over that image and really thinking deeply about it. And this poem feels so like alien and alive at the same time to me, and really unique in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks. I know it's great to get to see you. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much. And that was Samantha Schnell with Red. Let's go to another first-time caller, Fred Zerm.
There.
Hi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, it's good to be here.
Definitely. And where are you calling in from?
Rockville, Maryland.
Oh, all right.
I know Rockville very well. I lived in Silver Spring for a little bit there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right adjacent then. And I was sitting down to breakfast Sunday morning when I opened Kate's email and saw the prompt, took a bite from the bowl before me and discovered that Captain Crunch can be the poor man's Madeline. So,
That's great.
so this is crunch time. This morning, I made my usual breakfast blend of low oxalate cereals to keep away the cursed kidney stones that crippled me a couple years ago. Gone are the granola and raisin bran, banned for something even more bland. Gone too the peanut butter by Peter Pan, banished to somewhere beyond Never Never Land. Yes, unlike Peter, I'm grown up, but delighted to discover Captain Crunch is low oxalate, so I mix him in with life that Mikey likes more than me, and sail back to my younger days of triple snack, when cereals proudly proclaimed their sweetness, sugar smacks and sugar pops, plus peanuts, probably just sweepings from the Kellogg's factory floor. But oh, what a way to start the day. One that carried me through high school and college and even the early months of my first marriage, until the sugar rush faded and we sat silent at our shared breakfast table.
Yeah, I love that. A great turn. At the end, too.
Really. I mean, the creativity here is so sweet. Can we say that? I really love the idea of allowing yourself to play on how funny these cereals names can be. And Peter Pan is just really playful, and that allowed us to get serious at the end and have it have far more resonance because we had so much playfulness earlier. So I really enjoyed reading this poem. And
Okay.
hearing you read it, of course, too. So, and I hope that it makes your breakfast tomorrow all the sweeter. So
Thanks a lot.
thanks
Take
so
care.
much. Great to meet you.
Thanks so much. Yeah. So that was Crunch Time.
They should put that on the back of cereal boxes. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Okay. Real poetry.
Maybe they will. Maybe,
yeah, I think we'll start that.
We already
petition.
have all the cooking algorithm coming in, all the new traffic. Maybe some of them are some promotional.
Kellogg's is
marketers for
definitely going to
Kellogg's.
sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was Frederick Zerm with Crunch Time.
Thanks.
Let's go next to Brian O'Sullivan.
Whoa.
Hello again, Brian. We saw you earlier today when we were recording the Poetry Space, and any day where you get to see Brian O'Sullivan twice is a good day. So
Double O'Sullivan.
yeah, Double O'Sullivan.
I
That's
don't know, that might be too much for most people, but I appreciate it. So, where I am in life right now is alive after a little touch of cancer. And so I finished chemo back in November, and the poem kind of starts there.
Yay! Sorry.
With context. Okay. Ringing the bell. My heart still beats in IMs. Never fear. My Metaport will go. We can ignore what scared us. Just a hiccup, nothing more. My prospects are, the doctors say, top tier. And if ever in treatment our tickers slip right out of gear, if they skidded an Anapass across a slick, slippery floor, if mortality rates set them racing much faster than ever before, they have settled back down now that scans show all clear. Someday, though, another scan may spook me. Cars may crash, or season, pile on season, till the final trochee falls to utter silence. C'est la vie. We all must go, but not unloving, not unloved. As long as you are here, we'll make it lovely.
Oh, very sweet, Brian.
Oh, yeah. I loved reading this poem, and of course, you being on the other side of this means so much to everybody here and everything. And, that you kept writing and everything throughout what you were going through. And, I think we're able to lean on poetry a little bit to hopefully make it a little bit better. It's really inspiring. And we're so glad you got to ring that bell. So.
Well, I'm so glad I got to come here during it all. Helped a lot.
Yeah. Well, we're so happy to have you and
Brian.
continue having you, Brian. Thanks so much. It
Thanks
really
so much, Brian.
means so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Brian O'Sullivan with Ringing the Bell. And next, let's go to Jared Campbell.
Hello.
Hey, Jared. Good to see you.
Good to see you. All right. So I did In the New World, as in the Old, debt covers everything like dust. Cleaning out the filters, how I miss the cottonwoods full of birdsong. And then I spent a few years in Kansas. Kansas, he says, sipping his gin, obviously just as bored of me as I am of myself. I can't figure out whether it's my turn to talk or his, so I sip my gin as well. That's how conversations go here. Everybody takes turns talking about where they were before Big Red. There's no point talking about what we do here. Anyone I meet at the bar or dorms or cafeteria or company store is a farmhand for Mars American Cyanobacteria Limited Liability Company, just like I am, or I wouldn't have met them. It's better than water drilling or working in the mines. That's what I hear anyway. I guess there's no way to know for sure. I take another sip of gin. He's telling me about something that happened in an Ohio Walmart 20 years ago, but he knows I'm not listening. He's paused. He sips. It might be my turn to talk again. Hey, have you ever met anybody who's paid off their passage indenture? He scoffs. Come on, he says. You don't believe in that, do you? Even if someone ever did, where would they go? I'm not saying there's somewhere I want to go. I'm just saying it would be nice to log into my account and not owe anybody anything. I don't say it, though. We're both too fragile to get into an argument. Mars doesn't have enough gravity. A few years here, and your bones demineralize. My coworkers all try so hard to act masculine, aping their memories of what that word meant 10 years ago on Earth. I watch them shuffle gingerly through the halls and think, We are all such fragile men. The sun shining blurrily through the dusty window is too small.
Well, I thought, Jared, this was just really interesting, and also could have read like an after poem to Samantha's where like it was like a character, you know. It was like I felt like and I read them really close together, and I had to do a double take, like what is this? You know, when I looked at it like that. And I think Amanda Harris highlighted the same line that's my favorite line too, about like it's something similar to, it's hard to see because it's in the block of the body, but it'd be nice not to know anybody anything is a really great line that really hits in there, and also makes me grateful to be on Earth, which is something I appreciate in this moment. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. It was Jared Campbell with In the New World as in the Old, Debt Covers Everything Like Dust. Great title, too. All right, let's go next to Matt Joseph.
We're hearing some echoes first.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
hey,
think
Matt.
it's good now.
Great.
Hey, Matt. Good
Awesome.
to see you.
Hey, guys. You as well. All right. I'll jump right in. At 55, I run the trails of Annandale Park, Sunday mornings, 7 a.m. half-light, sifting through live oak and Douglas fir, the passing forest falling away like a dream I've already forgotten. Looking down, I try hard not to step on glistening balls of horny newts humping away shamelessly, just out here for all to see, an orgy slick with amphibian lust, which makes me ponder my falling testosterone, my breath tighter, one sloping strides clipped, my life so much lighter now the day's pockets are no longer stuffed with children and all their sundry. There's more time to discover excuses to not do the things that I swore I would do when at last I had time. The currency of urgency not gaining much interest, an account whose arrow's been yanked at by gravity. I wonder, after God, they and them, amen, sent their only child into the world to die, be reborn, and all that, did they wander ethereal corridors, tugging aimlessly at the hem of their shimmering pan-dimensional garb, snapping at angels for plucking their harps too loudly? Did they wait, almost eagerly, for the sound of nails being hammered into a cross, rising up from the face of their failed creation? Did they check to make sure the bedroom was ready, the bed made, the pantry filled with their boys' favorite snacks?
Yeah, Matt, I really loved where you went in this poem, and the idea of applying typical human domestic scenes onto the gods was so interesting. And it was one of those things where I felt like I should have read a million poems that do that, because it is such a great idea and allows for such a great journey, but I can't really remember having done that before. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
Cool.
really
you.
enjoyed it, and good job on those runs. Way to go. Sunday morning.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks so much, Matt. Yeah, it was Matt Joseph with that 55. Next, let's see. Let's go to, hey, it's a familiar face. Michelle Meyer
is back.
It's back.
After almost like she never left. Hi, Michelle.
It's like deja vu. I know, and I'm wearing the same outfit I wore last time.
Well, I thought you had a really interesting take on this prompt, and so I was excited for you to share it with us as well.
Great. Okay. Turbulence. I'm preparing for flight. My seat has been chosen. My meal has been chosen. I'm packed and ready to go. It's long and I'm anxious, and I hope the sky is smooth, free from emergency. Nothing like the day I was born.
Yeah, I think that, we're thinking about negative space a lot, because that's the poetry space that we just recorded. And so in seeing this poem in particular, I really thought you captured the unsettling nature of turbulence well with the space that you allowed around the words. And then that, that real volta to the day of birth, and it hinting at, a traumatic potentially situation and it being like that, I thought was really interesting take.
Thank you. It was a fun experiment too. I liked pushing that a bit more than I usually do.
Well, great. And thanks again for writing the winning prompt poem of the month. And that will be
Yes.
published tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yep.
Yep,
Poem of the day
tomorrow out to
tomorrow.
25,000 people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, so that was Michelle Meyer with Turbulence. And yeah, her poem will be the poem of the day tomorrow, emailed to 25,000 people. Also, tons of people see them online.
Yeah, that's a
on
good
the
point. I don't
website,
mean to
too.
limit it to
Yeah,
25,000
it's
people.
way more, actually.
Yeah,
But if you want to get it in your inbox, though, all you got to do is go to Reddit.com. At the bottom of any page in the footer, you'll see the link to sign up for our daily poem by email.
Yep. And then before we close out the invited portion of the prompt lines, I just wanted to mention too, if you cannot be here, do not check the box that says, yes, I can be there for the Rattlecast on Sunday. Good
Yeah.
note.
Yeah, we are ending a little bit early because
We are, because we had a couple people that checked yes, but that's what that box means, and you don't have to check that. It will not influence, if you're picked or not at the end of the month. I also want to remind everybody too, because I think there's some fear maybe that if they're not invited on the prompt lines, it means that their poem has no chance, and that's not the case. I will remind everybody I was a professional poker player, and there's game theory, and there is this thing called balancing ranges. So I don't want it to never be a mystery, but just be aware. I'm keeping everything in mind, and if you're not picked, it doesn't mean that you're not potentially in the running too. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And really, if you think about it too, checking the yes that you can make it and then not going is cutting someone else out that could have been here.
It is. So please don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, thanks anyway.
Yeah. But let's move on to a haiku to wrap it up. And so what do you got for us for your haiku?
I'm continuing on in the form of haiku. That's the only kind of haiku I can write now.
Do you know what you're calling these yet? Have you decided?
I don't know. I do need a name for it because I really like writing them, and I think it does offer something kind of unique with the brackets. But anyway, this one is Building the Sandcastle Memories.
Well, very cool. So Building the Sandcastle Memories. So what inspired that? How'd that come about?
Actually, it's funny that you asked because I saw that Billy Collins' wife posted that they were at the beach, and I looked at their beach pictures and commented on something, and then I started thinking about days I'd had at the beach and sandcastles and stuff. So he didn't build a sandcastle and they posted pictures, but that's what made me think about it.
Yeah, well, very cool. And then it's so it's building memories as well, and the sandcastle. Yeah, that's how to read that.
And the sandcastle disappears. So yeah, that's why I like it with the brackets there, because you can read it without the brackets. But yeah,
very interesting form of.
Thank you.
Haiku, says Jerry Campbell. Looks like an eyeball.
An haiku. I thought it was a dozier-ku. Isn't that what you tell everyone to put their name into it?
It's got to be a dozier.
It seems like it could work. It's a Z something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
Gotta TM that before the next episode.
Very cool form. Can't wait to see the first non-Katie Dozier-ku in modern poetry. Or modern haiku. That'd be fun. Poetry's never going to publish a haiku. We know that. Anyway.
In before people claim that they did those weren't haiku 2 years ago.
That's true.
That. Okay. Yeah. Anyway.
So so I went back to the Frank Turner concert. Okay. After I dropped you off at home. No,
yeah, that sounded like you went to another one. Did you drive to San Antonio?
So I was thinking, I remember the most fun experience of the concert was so Frank Turner, and it should be, if you don't know Frank Turner, he's like a punk band, sort of with folk kind of stuff going on too on his own. It's an interesting combination, but it's a lot of fast stuff, and he likes to crowd surf, and he happened to be joined right after we talked to him by his girlfriend. And her mom. And so apparently her mom had never been crowd surfing, and somehow he was like, hey, why don't you go crowd surfing? And so in the middle of the concert, his mom comes out crowd surfing, and that was very fun.
His girlfriend's mom.
Girlfriend's mom.
Yeah, it was really amazing. She was so full of joy, and the crowd was so nice. And he did instead of a wall where people run into each other, he had a hug wall. But he's singing punk music, he's cursing. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool.
It was definitely cool. So here's my haiku thing about that. Baby boomer crowd surfing middle age. Baby boomer crowd surfing middle age. A listy haiku there. That is my haiku for this week. That is the show for this week. Now next week's prompt on the Rattlecast is going to be what, Katie?
We are going to write a poem.
Oh, nice.
Which confesses something that's secretly seasonal to you, but not so much to others.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I'll have to think about that actually ahead of time.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm writing about. I try to think about it after I come up with it to make sure it's a viable idea, but this time we'll find out together.
Okay, kind of like a personal Kigo.
Yeah, that's it. That is actually what I was. Wow, you read my mind there. All right.
All right. Well, that is your prompt this week. Write a poem which confesses something that's secretly seasonal to you, but not so much to others. That's your prompt. Your guest is going to be Jane Zwart. Now, Jane Zwart, I don't really know that much about the poet Jane Zwart, except I kept accepting her poems. And then by the time I sent the acceptance, right in between, she withdrew them. It happened 3 times.
No.
And so
that's the
over
worst.
The years, I know. I know her. Poems get picked up fast. That's all I know really about Jane. But we finally got a poem in the current issue of Rattle, so I thought I'd invite her on. Her book here is Oldest and Saddest and Best. That's her new book. She's going to be on the guest next week. Jane Zwart, Rattlecast number 333. That's Monday, March 9th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you there. Hope you have a great week in the meantime. Oh, I should say, too, no critique of the week this week. We have some previously scheduled thing going on, so we can't make it. We'll be back the week after, though. But that's the Rattlecast, 333. See you next week. Hope you have a great week. We'll talk to you later. Good night.
Good night.